27, 2017 meeting of the Oshkosh Common Council. Welcome to everyone joining us in council chambers, as well as those watching or listening through Oshkosh Media. We're pleased to have citizens participate in local government, so welcome to all. Will the Deputy City Clerk please take the roll call?
Allison Osby.
Here.
Herman.
Here.
Pansky.
Here.
Krause.
Here.
Heck.
Here.
O'Meary.
Here.
Mayor Cummings.
Here.
Present 7.
As everyone to staff at invocation, let's be led by Councilmember Allison Osby.
Thank you, Mayor. We ask for guidance tonight as we begin this meeting. May all those who participate in our discussions and our decisions reflect the values that we cherish in this great city. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on our agenda is an introduction of a new staff member, and who will be doing Manager off.
Kelly's pointing to me, so it's me, so that's quite all right. It's my pleasure to introduce Everett Butzine. Stand up, Everett. This is Everett. He just joined us after graduating from UW Oshkosh just this past May with a degree in geography and urban planning. So comes from a great program, right, Lori?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And he was also a member of the UW Oshkosh football team, so he took us to the national championship. So
That's why he's so big, huh?
that's exciting. He's been working out since he's been here, carrying things around. No, Everett's doing a lot of really good things and associated with supporting Kelly in the economic development program, including putting together a lot of what are called requests for information, or RFIs. Anytime New North or somebody like that is looking for some assistance with putting together RFIs, Everett is the chief researcher on those things. Getting GIS maps for folks that are looking prospects for the city, and just maintaining and marketing a list of city-owned property so we can market it to the general economic development world. So those are the types of things he's doing. Assists also with the inspections division to coordinate things between developers and our inspections group. So we're happy to have Everett on board, and you'll be seeing more of him as time goes on. Welcome.
Welcome.
Mark, as long as you mention it, who's handling the neighborhood associations now, since Liz is gone? Has that been decided?
Yeah, I think Mr. Davis will probably have to answer that question, but
I had a citizen contact me and just didn't know who to contact now.
I know Alexa was doing some of it, but I guess Alan can confirm it's Alexa and anybody else.
When in doubt, contact Darren Burrich, because they're kind of sharing the neighborhoods but with the assistant planners right now.
Okay.
And then once we hire a new planner, there might be some more shuffling with that. But for right now, contact Darren.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
First on the agenda is a public hearing. This requires 3 readings, and then we will vote on it. It's Resolution 17-299, approved final for special assessments contract number 17-22 Sawdust District Improvements. Second reading, Resolution 17-299, approval final for special assessments contract number 17-22 Sawdust District Improvements. Third and final reading, Resolution 17-299, approval final for special assessments contract number 17-22 Sawdust District Improvement. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this resolution? I see no one coming forward. I'll bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. Rolfe, you want to just, for the people that might be listening tonight, could you just give us what is the Sawdust District, the boundaries now?
For purposes of planning, the Sawdust District is pretty much everything east of South Main Street, south of the Fox River, and north of, I would say, 14th Avenue. And for these special assessments, the area is really more about 11th to 14th and Main Street on both sides, east to the east of the tracks. Is that a fair statement, James?
Yeah, that looks like it sums it up very well.
And with that type of, maybe James, you can answer this, with that type of project, is that section of South Main going to be closed for a period of time?
Yes, actually, it will be. There will be an item on the agenda for the next council meeting to approve that closure.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
Are there any other questions from council? I see none, so would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby?
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Pansky?
Aye.
Krause?
Aye.
Heck?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Mayor Cummings?
Aye.
Carried 7.
Now we have citizen statements to council. Citizens are to address the council only. Statements are limited to 5 minutes, must address items that are not listed in the council meeting agenda, are limited to issues that have an impact on the city of Oshkosh, and the common council may address at a future meeting, and must not include endorsements of any candidates or other electioneering. Is there anyone in the audience like to step forward? Address the council. I see no one coming forward. I'll bring it, no, we don't need to bring it back to us. And now we have consent agenda items. These are the items of a routine administrative nature that are voted on by the council in a single roll call vote. Staff recommends approval of all items. A member of the public or common council may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda for discussion. Number 2, report of bills by finance director. 3, receipt of claims filed with the city's insurance company, A. Mark Bradish, for alleged damages due to water shutoff during construction. 4, resolution 17-300, approve general development plan for a multi-tenant retail office use 1000 block North Washburn Street. Plan Commission recommends approval. Resolution 17-301, accept sidewalk and traffic signal easement at 606 East Murdoch Avenue. Plan Commission recommends approval. Approve and submit 2016 Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Compliance Maintenance Annual Report, wastewater treatment plant. Resolution 17-303, award bid for Public Works contract number 17-20 to Wood Sewer and Excavating, Inc. for storm sewer lateral, various locations, $33,473. Resolution 17-304, award bid to Packer City International and Monroe Truck Equipment for tri-axle truck chassis and stainless steel dump body for the Water Distribution Division, $114,538. Resolution 17-305, award bid to Clink Equipment for industrial forklift for water filtration, $26,199. Resolution 17-306, award bid to Borger LLC for rotary low pumps for the wastewater treatment plant, $48,501. Resolution 17-307, approve purchase of traffic signal equipment from TAPCO for the Bone and Murdoch Reconstruction Project 17-05, $39,095.40. Resolution 17-308, approve professional services proposal to Gerber Leisure Products for playground design and installation for Nominee Park Sea, Sand, and Sailor Land, $122,500. Resolution 17-309, approve professional services proposal for Gerber Leisure Products for playground design installation for Fugelberg Park, $120,098. Resolution 17-310, approve initial resolution for special assessments, contract number 17-19, Aviation Business Park Water Main Loop. Resolution 17-311, approve mutual aid agreement for suppression of forest fires with State of Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. The following resolutions, 17-312 through 17-318, are for special events that will be held this year, so I won't keep reading special event or the 2017. The first is Resolution 312, Rich's Barbershop LLC to utilize Menominee Park for the Party in the Park with Rich's Barber Shop, July 23. Resolution 17-313, Winnebago County Fair Association to hold the Winnebago County Fair at Sunny View Exposition Center, August 2 through 6. Resolution 17-314, Party O to utilize Red Arrow Park for the Splash Gosh event, August 5. Resolution 17-315, Hmong Service Center, Inc., to utilize Winnebago County Community Park for the Hmong National Labor Day Festival, September 2nd through the 3rd. Resolution 17-316, Winnebago County Labor Council to utilize South Park for the Labor Day Picnic and Car Show, September 4. Resolution 17-317, Lourdes Academy Student Council to utilize city streets for the Lourdes Academy Homecoming Parade, September 15. Resolution 17-318, Oshkosh Rotary Club to utilize Opera House Square for the downtown chili cook-off, October 14. Resolution 17-319, approve block party Terry Wyenberg to utilize West Bent Avenue from Jackson Street and Wisconsin Street to hold their neighborhood block party July 15, 2017. Resolution 17-320, approve block party Jenny Boy to utilize Washington Avenue between Hazel Street and Bone Street to hold their neighborhood block party July 29, 2017. And approve block party Jackie Steiner to utilize West Fifth Avenue between Knapp Street and Idaho Street to hold their neighborhood block party August 1, 2017. The final resolution is 17-322, approve special Class B licenses, operator and taxi cab licenses. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to any of these resolutions? I see one coming forward. I'll bring back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion on any of the resolutions from any council members? Mary?
Yes, regarding 17-300, I guess this would be a question for Mr. Davis. I just noticed in the resolution that there were conditions that were specified in this, number 2 specifically, a conditional use permit on the permitted parking facilities exceeding 125% of the development's minimum number. I think we refer to that later on as a maximum number. But in any event, can you just talk a little bit about the specific implementation plan and what the Plan Commission was thinking in relation to this request for the exceeding the maximum?
I believe I can. Just to explain the process with the Plan Commission and a general implementation plan, it's kind of a broad perspective as to what the development's going to be on that particular site. So they've identified the building locations and the parking and some of the general landscaping. But they have to come back for specific implementation for each project. And the specific implementation will require the elevations, the landscaping, and the specific parking design that they are proposing. So that's why I think the Plan Commission wanted more details, and of course they're going to get all those as part of the specific implementation. But in general, I think they've agreed that the layout is good, the general principles that they're trying to conform to are correct, but they still need to bring in those specific implementation plans for Plan Commission and council approval.
And I guess just my follow-up question then is, did the developer give a reason as to why they were asking for so much parking in the first place? I know they indicated that in that SIP that they would look at ways to reduce it, but I was just curious as to what the original thought was in terms of necessitating that.
I'm guessing here, I believe it related to what the potential tenants would require as part of their lease for that. I hate to put Mr. Cummings on the spot, but he was in
No,
the same meeting. Maybe he has a better recollection.
The Plan Commission felt the amount of parking was excessive for the potential use of these stores. They're pretty small stores, and we didn't feel it would be anything requiring a lot of customer parking. So they're to come back to us with a revised plan for parking.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from council? If not, would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Hansky.
Aye.
Krause,
Aye.
Peck,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mayor Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 7.
There were no items removed from the consent agenda, so that'll take us to new ordinances. The first is ordinance 17-323, approved closure of Oshkosh Avenue from North Westfield Street to Eagle Street. In parent staff recommends waiving the rules and adopting on the first reading. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this? I will bring it back to council. Is there a motion to waive the rules and vote on this tonight?
I would move to waive the rules and approve on first reading.
Second.
Would anyone from the public like to address this? No one's coming forward. Bring it back to the council for discussion. Yes.
Mr. Roloff, do you maybe want to inform the public on what we are doing here and when we are doing this?
I'm going to defer that to Mr. Robbie, who's got the details about the construction going on Oshkosh Avenue.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you remember at the last council meeting, we approved a construction contract for miscellaneous utilities, which did include constructing utilities on Oshkosh Avenue. Those contract documents did allow a 12-day closure of Oshkosh Avenue for the contractor in an effort to be safe both to the contractor and the general traveling public. The sanitary sewer construction is relatively deep and similar to the closure that we had at the intersection of Oshkosh Ave and Westfield Street last year. In the interest of being safe both to the public and the contractor's staff, it was necessary to close this particular street, which in accordance with Section 2523 of the municipal code is supposed to stay open. So we do need to get council's approval in order to close it for this construction to take place.
And this is going to be taking place July,
Contractor is proposing to start the week after the 4th of July, so July 10th is when they're proposing to start. And the road will be open during EAA and fully open and restored before the university move in Labor Day weekend.
and residents can anticipate seeing detour signs up?
Detour
that
signs,
starts?
pending approval tonight, if approved, the advance warning signs are intended to go up tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Because of the holiday weekend, we wanted to try and get them out a little bit earlier, so as people, may be away for the 4th of July holiday, they maybe can see them yet this week before they're gone.
Great.
Any other council questions? Would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Pansky.
Aye.
Krause,
Aye.
Peck,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mayor Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 7.
And I would move for approval of 17-323.
Second.
Any comments from the public? Bring it back to the council for discussion. I see none. Would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Pansky.
Aye.
Krause,
Aye.
Peck,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mayor Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 7.
There are 3 more ordinances. There'll be no formal action taken on any of the 3. The first is ordinance 17-324. Modify parking regulations to restrict parking on 10th and 11th Avenue from South Main Street to the end of the street. Ordinance 17-325, modify parking regulations on Mill Street. And then ordinance 17-326, designate Rootsville Sawyer Creek Drive as through street at intersection with Mockingbird Way. Mockingbird Way stops at the intersection. New resolutions. Resolution 17-327, approve annual city licenses. These are renewals. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this resolution? Is there no one coming forward? Bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Discussion? Would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Pansky,
Aye.
Krause,
Aye.
Peck,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mayor Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 7.
Resolution 17-328, a resolution providing for the issuance and sale of $15,075,000 aggregate principal amount of sewer system revenue bonds, Series 2017D, of the City of Oshkosh, Winnebago County, Wisconsin, providing details describing the form of bond, awarding said revenue bonds to the best bidder, and providing for the payment of said revenue bonds and other detailed covenants with respect thereto. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to this? I'll bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
And questions? Mr. Taves?
Very active day in the market today. You received a total of 8 bids on Series D sewer. Usually we're happy if we get 3, so that was a good showing. The winning bid came from J.P. Morgan with a 2.849% TIC. By way of comparison, we had the water revenue bond 2 weeks ago, and that was 2.859, so virtually identical results, and we haven't seen a lot of movement in the market, so that tells us that there's some consistency out there. As the mayor indicated on reading the resolution, the par amount of the issue has been reduced by $1,205,000 down to $15,075. The major driver behind that was a $977,000 bond premium that you received that we used to reduce the issue size. There was also some unutilized underwriting discount, a little bit less cost of issuance, and then also because the bond size goes down, it makes the required reserve fund smaller as well, which helps to reduce the issue size. So when we take all those factors into consideration, as compared to the pre-sale estimate that you looked at several months ago when the issues were planned, the total debt service will be $1,498,294 less than that estimate.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other, Ms. Lawrence?
Mr. Mayor, we had a last-minute correction from bond counsel, so I'm going to ask the council if someone would please make a motion to amend the resolution to adopt the changes on the page I'm handing out to you. It was just an adjustment in one of the columns of the numbers on the resolution, so it was a small item, but we'd like the correct numbers in there, so if we can have a motion to do that.
I would move to amend per city attorney's recommendation.
Second.
Discussion? I'll give the council a minute to take a look at the new figures.
Mr. Tate, if I could just, do you have a copy of this?
I do not.
Could you have an extra one?
Actually,
It's just kind of a weird question maybe, but
if
we start out at an interest rate of 3% in 18 for a couple of years, and it goes up to 4. Then there's 4 years of 5, or is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, 5 years, then it goes back down. Why is it up and down in the
So that-
interest rate?
So that premium I mentioned, what the bidders do is they build that into what is the non-callable portion of the bond issue, which is the upfront piece. So that's why you'll often see what we call the coupon rate actually go down after that call period is over.
Okay. So they can call it due then?
You can call it.
We
due.
can call it due?
Yeah,
Or have it re-looked at for rebidding like we've done?
You could either redeem it after 10 years, pay it off with cash, or you could refinance it at that point in
Okay.
time.
Okay, and we've been doing that the last couple of years, I know, so, thank you.
If there are no,
So we need a vote on the motion to amend that maturity schedule.
we have a motion and a second, so would you please take the roll on the amendment?
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Pansky,
Aye.
Kraus,
Aye.
Peck,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mayor Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 7.
And we need a vote on the resolution as amended.
Yep.
So I need a first and a second again, don't I?
Nope.
No, it's
No,
already
no,
on the
it's
floor.
already on the floor.
So would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Pansky,
Aye.
Kraus,
Aye.
Peck,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mayor Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 7.
Stay up here. Next is Resolution 17-329, a resolution determining to issue $9,720,000 aggregate principal amount of stormwater utility revenue bonds, Series 2017E, of the City of Oshkosh, Winnebago County, Wisconsin, in such amount providing details prescribing the form of bond, awarding the bonds to the best bidder, and providing for the payment of said bonds and covenants with respect thereto. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address this resolution? I see no one coming forward. Back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Received 7 bids on this issue. The winning bid was submitted by Piper Jaffrey with a true interest rate of 3.031. That's 18/100ths of 1% higher than the sewer and the water. The reason for that is that while the water and the sewer have AA3 bond ratings, the stormwater is rated 1 notch lower at A1. So there's a slightly higher cost of capital when stormwater borrows. This issue was reduced from $10,480,000 down to $9,720,000. The drivers were the same reasons essentially. There was a $682,624 bond premium that was used to reduce the issue size, and again, some unused underwriting discounts, slightly less cost of issuance, and a smaller debt service reserve requirement. So all total, as compared to the pre-sale estimate, the total principal and interest over the life of the issue will be about $891,000 less than that original estimate.
Are there any further questions? Would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Pansky,
Aye.
Kraus,
Aye.
Peck,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mayor Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 7.
Next, we have Resolution 17-330, accept donation of enhanced balcony theater seating and approve agreement with the Oshkosh Opera House Foundation for the Grand Opera House. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this? I see no one coming forward. Back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Ferrous, would you like to come forward, please? You want to just tell our viewing audience what the Grand Opera House Foundation is proposing to do with the Grand Opera House?
Sure. We met in August of last year to try to figure out a way, among the other things we discussed in terms of the Grand, is how to maximize the ability of the Grand's earning potential with an audience, but also to create a superior and enhanced audience experience for the people who attend shows. We turned our attention to the area where the most dramatic improvement could be made, and that's the balcony of the Opera House. Anyone who's sat there knows that it is probably the best place to see and to hear a show, and also probably the least comfortable place to sit in the theater, especially if you're over 5 feet 4 inches tall. So we wanted to address that, but knowing that we had to be true to the significance of the aesthetic of the Opera House, and knowing that the building is the property of the city, and not wanting to do a major $1 million renovation, we started to think about ways we could do a project that would test the water, create the improved seating, and if it didn't work, would be completely reversible. Now, that's not to say it's not well done. Reversible means it could be this way for 30 years if it works. But if it doesn't, we can always restore the balcony to the state that it is right now. We wanted to make sure we took the same care that we took when we started to talk about the Grand Lounge project years ago, the last time that we raised private funds and gifted to the city. We went to Carroll's and Associates, whose firm is well-known, probably knows the Grand as well as anybody through that 2010 roof project that we did. And we started to have the conversations. We discussed with the concepts with the Grand Opera House Advisory Board on a couple different occasions. We've reached out and had a conversation with the State Historical Society. And we're prepared, obviously, to have any other conversations we need to have along the way to make sure that the community is well served here. The result will be a reduction in capacity in the balcony of just over 100 seats. But it will take, if you think of seating as A, B, C, D, E, it will take D and E level seats and replace them with AA seats. They'll become, in essence, some of the best seats in the house. Because every other aisle it will be removed and raised, which is the way to do it and remain true to code, there will be, where there was once no legroom, there's going to be incredible legroom. Where seats in the balcony were once 16.5 to 19.5 inches wide, they're now 21 to 23 inches wide. And I want to caution anyone who's concerned about aesthetic. I know, Council, you've seen photographs. The seats we've looked at are matching to the seats of the Grand. We're not talking about, dream loungers or anything up in the balcony. We're going to stay true to the way the Grand looks and true to the aesthetic and the integrity of the building. But we want to try to see if we can find a way to make the audience experience that much better. And at the same time, it lowers because the ticket scaling has moved up, the amount of tickets it takes to break even and create a revenue stream also becomes lower and more manageable for foundation-presented shows.
Okay, thank you.
I just
Oh, Mary?
want to ask a follow-up question.
Sure.
This would in no way change the accessibility for the wheelchair accessible areas? would
Not
it?
at present, no, because that would require a different sort of renovation, but I'm glad you mentioned it, because ADA requirements would require that whatever situation we create upstairs, we're going to create a superior seating arrangement with, let's say, your first drinks on the house. You know what I mean? You're going to pay a premium price, and it's going to include some kind of refreshment service. Then we will create the same experience somewhere on the main floor accessible areas of the Grand for a customer who is not able to use the balcony but still wants to experience the suite seats, as we call them.
Very good, thanks.
I do have one question. It is a city-owned property.
Yes,
It's
sir.
a historic property. Why wasn't the Oshkosh Landmarks Commission involved in this?
We went through the procedure that we went through for the last renovation, which was first to contact the Historical Society. And truthfully, the project moved forward rather quickly once the dollars came forward. I'm certainly prepared to talk to Landmarks at any point. I'm happy to talk to them. We had great conversations the last time we did this project. Same with the, we have, I know, a special meeting of the Opera House Advisory Board scheduled where I can give them the final details on where we're going with this. And we've met with city staff. I'm certainly prepared for any due diligence you ask.
The Landmarks Commission should be involved in this whole process.
Would you like the foundation to contact? Should I go through Mr. Roloff? What's the procedure you'd like, Mr. Mayor?
It should go on either a special meeting of the Landmarks Commission or the normal meeting.
Okay, we can do that.
Thank
Just
you.
one more question, Mayor.
Yes.
What's the time frame for completion or
The
possible?
most pressing issue to be ready to open the Grand with enhanced balcony seating at the start of the season after Labor Day is the ordering of the seats. So the moment that the donation came forward that would cover the entire project, I started to drive the project forward with city staff and make the request to move forward. We should be ordering those seats as soon as possible, which is why we asked for the approval. Mr. Roloff, maybe you can help me on the wording of what we're trying to do today.
I believe what the idea is here is the council would accept the donation, but would direct staff to bring back what we've called a donation agreement. One of the details that's there is, what do we do with the chairs? Because the chairs that get taken out, and they still need to be there, as Joe said, we need to be prepared in case that has to be reversed. So Mr. Urban and Mr. Furlow will figure those details out, and we'll come back to the council with that. But they'll get the ball rolling on ordering the seats, but we'll work out those details. And I think in that same process, we can refer it to the Landmarks Commission, if that's council's wish. But we've done that type of agreement for some other larger donations in recent years. I'm trying to think of the one that, something with parks, I believe, we came back. Yeah, the River Otter exhibit. We'd done a donation agreement with the parties that made the donation, and that helped just get things smoothed over. So the July 11th meeting, we'll plan to bring that back for formal adoption so that the details of the donation are worked out.
But you want to be up and ready by the upcoming.
Our goal is to proceed with the project so that we're up and ready at Labor Day, open the new season with the seating, yes.
One final question, Joe, and Mr. Carroll's is in the background, so he could probably answer this too. Do you anticipate when the seats come out that you may find, being an older building, that there could be issues with the flooring or other things?
I'll answer it, and Tom can nod to correct me if I'm wrong.
That because we own the building would have to come back to us to be
That's
fixed.
exactly the reason for the approach that we took. We're not removing any structure from
Right.
the Grand. We're going to be raising the alternate aisles
Right.
with new construction that is reversible with matching carpeting. So we don't want to get into tearing into anything right now. That's one of the reasons
Yeah,
that
that's my concern. You find rotten wood or something underneath.
Exactly. We don't want to do any of that at this project because I don't think we want to tear that deeply into that building
Okay.
at this point.
So
There's a term called raking the balcony, and that would do what you're suggesting. And
yeah, I just want to make sure that, if they're in there and all of a sudden they do find some issues. I mean, I was on council when the roof issue came up, but I remember it started kind of small and got kind of big, and, we are doing some renovations here, and with us owning the building, I just want to make sure that if there are issues.
I completely understand, Counselor, because I was in my position when that last project
Yes,
happened.
you were.
And I have no interest
Going there.
in finding any surprises right now. I think we
Okay.
worked.
But I think that's great.
But we did, one of the
Working with
reasons
the
that we did
engineer.
ask Carroll's and Associates to work with us is we wanted to make sure that the other issues that would be involved, the non-materials issues, the load limits and that sort of thing, were all taken care of and engineered prior to us going into the project. And I think, as certain as I can be, I think we've alleviated the places where those surprises could happen.
Okay, very good.
I had one,
Excuse me.
Palmieri.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I could just ask a clarification then, respectfully, with the Landmarks Commission, is that a statutory requirement because of the designation, or is that just kind of a preference that we're asking that run through Landmarks?
It's not statutory. It's something that should be done as a matter of policy.
So I guess my question is, do we have something in the ordinance that would have, made this known, or
I think
educate me, I'm
it may be
sorry.
appropriate to just amend the resolution to include that as part of
Okay.
the condition of approval. That would make the most sense.
Okay.
Mr. Crowley?
I had a question. The seats you're pulling out for historic preservation purposes, do we have proper storage that they're going to be going into?
That's what Mr. Roloff was referring to. They will be stored. Mr. Urban and I will have to figure out where and how to properly do that. They are not historic to the original Grand, they're historic to the 1986 renovation.
Okay.
But that said, the whole goal of this project is to make it completely reversible if need be, so we will find storage for those seats as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Another question. You're removing over 100 seats, and balconies are usually the more affordable seats. Do you think you're going to be cutting out a lot of people who would attend the Grand because now the balconies will be full of more expensive seats?
Thank you, sir. I actually ran some numbers on that to bring to you on an average show. we're going to retain, I want to get the number right when I say it out loud. We're going to retain at least 50 to 60 of what people will call the cheap seats in the balcony. The balcony sides, all the way back, will still be attainable. We're reducing the capacity to about 550, and in the last 3 years, fewer than 10% of the shows have drawn over 550. Many approach, but few exceed. And in many of those shows, the balcony is either closed or attended or filled with 100 or fewer people. So certainly it's an issue that we wanted to address, but I think in the long run, it isn't as big an issue as it might appear, because there still will be affordable seats in the balcony for those who want it. And as the seats in the center of the balcony go up in price, some of the seats in the rear and the sides of the main floor actually go down in price as well. So there's a bit of a give and take to that.
And the last question is, when do we know that this will be financially successful?
I have donors in hand, if you mean the project itself.
We understand you have donors in hands, but when will we know that this concept is actually filling seats? And you're making as much money, if not more. That's the whole goal, is more income.
Well, the formula, the matrix by which, of the ticket sales indicate that an audience of 500 in the new potential, in the new configuration has an earning potential 15 to 20% higher than an audience of 500 in the old configuration. And in the new configuration, an audience of 500 has an earning potential 5% to 10% higher than a full house of 668 had previous. Short of actually putting the bodies in the seats, which is going to be a challenge in any configuration that we have to attain, I don't know that I can give you a definitive answer to the question, when do we know it's a success? Typically, I guess you know it's a success if you've drawn the people to the shows that you want to draw to the shows.
We'll make a profit.
Yes, sir.
Well, you know, this council, well, not necessarily this council, but the Oshkosh City Council tasked, basically, when we renegotiated the lease several years ago, one of the things that was communicated to the Grand was that, to the foundation board, was to get creative, was to develop new opportunities to increase revenue streams. There's no guarantee in life at all. This is one of these projects that the board has gotten behind and is saying that here's an opportunity for us to think outside the box, listen to what council has told us, in essence, to try and increase revenue. I think this is one of the types of things that we told them to do, and they are doing it. Again, this is totally reversible. If it doesn't work, we go back to what it was. But if you don't try, you never know if it will succeed. The Opera House Foundation Board is unanimously behind this. There are already people who have lined up and ready to purchase these seats. So the board heard what the council said and listened and is doing exactly what they were asked to do. So I would ask each of my fellow councilors to support this wholeheartedly. There is no city money involved in this. If it doesn't work, it gets returned back to the situation that it was.
Are there any further comments or questions?
Mr. Furlow, I think I can echo what Counselor Peck said. I was at a show a couple weeks ago, ran into Mr. Tower there, and I was seeing the example that you have of this seat. And my first thought was, what's that going to cost us? You know, and then he said, donations, we got it, you know, and I thought, wonderful. Even, how could you get any better than that, quite frankly? I usually purchase tickets for my parents for Christmas, and one of the issues with my parents is legroom, always legroom. My dad is tall, so we always have to look for an aisle seat or something, and this just enhances the whole experience. The balcony is one of my favorite places to sit, but even at the previous show, I had asked if I could move, because it is awfully cramped up there. So I applaud you and the board for looking for creative solutions to this, and I wish you luck. You have my support today and going forward, so thank you.
If there are no further comments, would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby?
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Pansky?
Aye.
Krause?
Aye.
Heck?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Mayor Cummings?
Aye.
Carried 7.
Resolution 17-331, approve amendment to 2017 capital improvement program to include comprehensive streets, utility improvements in the Sawdust District.
Excuse me, Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, if council would be amenable to it, I'd like to move to amend the order, the agenda order for item number 45. City manager's comments regarding updates on the arena prior to the next 5 resolutions as they all relate to the arena, just for a chronological efficiency.
Is that an amendment, a motion?
Yes.
I'll
I
second that.
move that.
Anyone from the public that would like to discuss it? I'll bring it back to the council for a
What
discussion.
is, what is the reasoning for it? I mean, we can ask the questions related to the individual amendments, or to the or the resolutions that are on the agenda. So why the change in order?
The purpose would just be for city manager to have the opportunity to go ahead and give us the updates prior to going into those discussions, rather than after the fact, because probably many of those questions will be somewhat duplicative.
And I would concur, because I think what it would give us is just where we are with the project currently and what future is into the project, which are the other resolutions. So just to hear a current update and that, since it's already, on the agenda, just move it forward. I don't have a
And really, 35 and 36 all are pretty much the same subject matter.
I understand, but agendas can be amended prior to meetings.
So it's been seconded. Are we going to vote?
Is there any further discussion? The motion is to adjust the agenda to have item 45 come before 35, and then the agenda would follow suit. Would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby?
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Pansky?
Aye.
Krause?
Aye.
Heck?
Present.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Mayor Cummings?
Aye.
Carried 6, present 1.
Okay.
So, Mr. Roloff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The memo, as Councilor Palmieri pointed out, is in your agenda packet under item 45. This is the first action that the council will be taking later in the meeting since they approved the TIF plan. Most of the work has since been really in the realm of the arena itself. The owners of the arena, they've been working on those issues. Any issues that are going on site are really outside our realm. They're working on that. If there's any issues, they certainly work those out with building inspections, but there have been few, if any, issues. There's been a slight change to the exterior. I'm not sure if anything needs to go to Plan Commission for those things, Mr. Davis.
They will eventually, with the exterior and the sign package and some changes to parking that they're thinking about.
So there's some minor changes there. But this is, aside from those issues, as I'm told, I was, Fox 11 had an on-site crew there this morning doing some on-site interviews and things like that, and I gave a little overview of the Sawdust District, and during that discussion, I heard the contractor say that they felt they were perhaps even a little bit ahead of schedule, so that was good, even with all the rain, which they complained about a great deal. But overall, to be honest with you, I walked the site for the first time since the groundbreaking, and the ground was in pretty good shape given all the rain we've had recently. So that was a great relief to me as well. In terms of the public improvements, we're here to talk about the public improvements tonight. This is where we're doing the bid award, so the bid prices will then be locked in. I think the staff, since the TIF was originally presented in early February, if you look at the schedule, the council had received, or the Plan Commission received, the TIF plan on February 2nd. The announcement about the bucks came February 8th. So the staff, the numbers that were put together were done prior to any authorization to begin work. Staff had not done any survey work out there. Those were just estimates based on previous bid prices for similar scope of projects. The scope has really changed, and that's why we're here tonight. When we get into that part of the agenda, I'm happy to talk about that.
If there are no questions from council, we will go back to Resolution 17-331. Approve amendment to 2017 Capital Improvement Program to include comprehensive street utility improvements in the Sawdust District. There is no one here to speak to that in the audience. I will bring it back to council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, discussions? We have Mr. Davis up here.
Ms. Pansky's got her hand up.
Thank you. Mr. Roloff, I had asked for, regarding the specific CIP purchases that had come in under bid, I had asked for a list of those differences, and I have yet to receive that.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to look at your email until this afternoon. I'm not sure if Mr. Robbie's in a position to get through the specific ones, but these are all projects that are budgeted in 2017 that have come in under budget, and that's where
Correct.
we're getting the utility funds from.
Is there a list available so that we can just do a little bit of due diligence on our end to, I don't know if anybody else is interested in that information, but me personally, I would just like to kind of look over that, and I know I could go back in past agendas and whatnot, what the differences is, but that's information that I would like.
Sure. James, if there's anything general.
I think, generally speaking, the bid prices that we've seen on our initial street reconstruction projects all came in under budget. Storm sewer was very close to right on budget, but the street paving, the water main construction, and sanitary sewer construction all came in under what we had estimated when we prepared the budget. So that would be all of the street reconstruction projects. The water main project, the miscellaneous utilities project that was approved at the last council meeting, that project also came in under budget, so there was some money available there. Trying to think which other ones.
I understand, but it was a funding source that was identified, in my opinion, very quickly, and I wish that there would be some more information available regarding those particular budgeted items and the
Okay.
actual purchase price, so to speak.
Leslie Olson-Osby?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to mention that due to perceived or potential conflicts of interest, that I will be abstained from any discussion or voting for 17, 331, 332, 333, 334, and 335. Just wanted to make a note of that.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Mr. Roloff, on these, kind of follow up to Ms. Pansky's questions, this is money that was already approved, right?
Yes.
And it's all money that was in the CIP for 2017, and it was money that, have we bonded for yet? Or
These
was
are-
the bonds that we did for 16 projects?
These are all projects for 2017. The borrowings that you approved the last meeting and this meeting included the borrowing for those funds. We do the borrowing in the aggregate. Now that we've identified these, and happy to provide that information to you, then we can, but we've incurred, for example, we have an $11.4 million limit in general obligation borrowing. our general obligation borrowing is not increasing as a result of this. So these are all in the street improvements that, as staff has looked at the scope of work and recognizing that there's much more work to be done in the Sawdust District, that they felt that in order for us to plan appropriately for the long-term needs of the Sawdust District, that we should do some of these improvements now. A prime example of that is the stormwater project, which then affects the water project. And again, when I'm talking about street improvements, it's always about what's under the road. The stormwater improvements that we had initially identified was a very simple, let's drain the water from South Park Avenue and get it over to the lake. So a stormwater project was going to go on South Park Avenue. As the staff looked at it, they felt that the overall area would benefit from a stormwater standpoint if we directed the stormwater down 14th Avenue, which would collect a larger area. This project's been identified for how long, James, would you say?
The initial studies on this watershed were done about 4 or 5 years ago, and as we looked at updating them, we identified that 14th Avenue was from a watershed-wide standpoint, a much better location to install the new storm sewer to get out to the lake rather than South Park Avenue and having to extend under multiple sets of tracks to get through kind of the CN storage yard area there. So
14th is where the road comes through, so it's a much simpler, it's a narrower path to get there. But to get there, you have to take a longer path to get there. And if we didn't do it this way, I assure you that we would be coming back in the next couple of years saying, we really should have done this, or we're going to have to spend even more because we have to do it twice. We did it once for the arena immediately, and then once for the larger area. This is a project that is going to provide value for us in the long run. We're spending more now, but I believe we'll be saving money later. With respect to water, we took a look at different options, but one of the things that the staff, as they were going through it, they said, are you making any accommodations for possible development of the Pioneer property? Currently, the Pioneer is served by a single water source. This would loop the water all the way down Pioneer Drive and loop it onto 14th, and then it's connected for reliability purposes. We're digging up 14th to do the stormwater. It makes sense to add the water, get that loop in now. Do we need it for the arena? We absolutely don't need it for the arena. We could choose not to do it. But then if something happens on the Pioneer property, we're going to be digging up 14th again. So it just makes sense to add these things now rather than regrettably include them in the future. We always have an opportunity to do things right the second time, but this is an opportunity for us to really take a look at this. And while I know there's some consternation out in the community that, oh, the costs are higher, you want the cost to be higher now so that we have savings later on. And I think I think the staff deserves credit for having the foresight to say, you want to do better. You don't want to just get it done cheaper this time and less expensive. It's going to be done well, but if we have to dig up the street again, excavation, it's going to disturb the entire area. James, I'm not sure if there's anything else that I missed upon.
No, I think, when the TIF plan was put together, it was focusing on just, that area. It was not focusing on some of the system-wide improvements that, as you indicated, is, much more cost-effective to do right now and have a larger impact than just, the arena project. It improves our system reliability significantly to do them all together right now.
Councilperson Palmieri?
Yes, so then when would we have done that? Since it was already identified, when would we have done that? Outside the arena, up to the 14th, and this other expansive, let's call it the dirty word that it is, scope creep. When would we have done that had it not been for?
Was it in the 5-year CIP? Or?
It was not in, well, there were sections of South Main Street that have been in the 5-year CIP, just kind of eternally out there. We didn't have an immediate year plan, but, certainly, if things take off in the district as we, all believe that they will, we would have had to have programmed it, I believe, probably in the next couple of years to do these improvements to provide this system reliability that we're looking to do right now.
So a follow-up question to that then would be, these improvements basically make that whole TIF district, sawdust district, ready. If another building went in there, another restaurant, a hotel, would we have to go in there and do more work? Or is this kind of like, we're anticipating the sawdust district taking off, and when it does, the infrastructure's already there?
This gets much more of it ready. You know, as Mark pointed out, you know, we're connecting a disconnect right now with Pioneer Drive that, you know, should a big project occur out there, you know, we would, you know, have a potential for failure with a single point of water supply. You know, so needing to get those loops in place, you know, this, you know, gets much more of the district, you know, prepared and ready. You know, will there be other infrastructure improvements? Probably, but until we see more movement in the district and know exactly what's going to happen, you know, I can't predict what those will be. But this certainly provides a significant level of system reliability for the district.
Do
As you go
we have
north
any
and-
issues with Canadian National? With their tracks right there, and that side yard? I mean, we've had very little support and help from them, so.
That continues.
They are
I
certainly.
mean, can they shut it down, the project?
I do not know the answer to that. I did trade some emails with their Director of Public Works out of Stevens Point earlier today. Certainly, they're looking for some information about the project and to find out, you know, if it's going to be increasing traffic around the rail crossing in particular. You know, we're just trying to get some of those things in the works. Certainly, you know, we do have the two utility crossings, the storm sewer and the water main crossing at 14th Avenue, you know, that we, you know, have submitted our applications to the Canadian National Railroad for. So, you know, we are working with those staff, but like I said, you know, the Director of Public Works for, you know, CN for Wisconsin and I have been trading some emails today to try and get some more information to them relating to the project.
So,
Councilman Peck?
in
Yeah,
essence, we
hopefully
could have a problem yet.
Fortunately, because we're boring the utilities, we're not going to disrupt traffic on CN, and that makes it a lot easier. When we're talking about physically digging up the tracks, then
Yeah,
it'll
they
take
wouldn't let us
forever.
do that.
And we knew, because of once we started having this discussion, we knew that we're going to need to bore under there, and that's more costly, but it's a relatively short distance we're going to be boring. Once we get past their right-of-way, then we're back up above ground and doing normal trenching.
Right.
All right.
Mr. Peck?
These improvements, these benefit areas outside of the sawdust district, correct? As well as not only doing the sawdust district?
Correct.
Yeah.
So-
This basin, where does this basin run? For example, the stormwater is.
The stormwater watershed that discharges to 14th Avenue extends west beyond Ohio Street. You know, in a band from about 12th to 15th, 16th, you know, all the way back past Ohio Street. So, you know, there's a pretty sizable watershed that's coming through this area.
So then we're increasing our ability to manage stormwater in areas outside of the sawdust district, correct?
Correct.
So then this is not specifically related to the sawdust district before we all get, because I think that's where a lot of the consternation is that they hear sawdust, that you know, people say sawdust, that this is related to the sawdust district. Why, yes, it is, because we are improving it. But at the same time, we are also doing things that will benefit areas outside of the sawdust district.
And down the road, to go back to Deputy Mayor Herman's question, you know, as we move north in the sawdust district, there'll be other basins and things, other connection issues. The vision with the sawdust district is that we punch through 9th all the way to the Pioneer and abandon Pioneer Drive, 6th Avenue. So those will be infrastructure costs, obviously, that'll be incurred. But up in this area, the idea is that if we're digging it up for the arena, we may as well dig it up for the benefit of the larger area. And we were able to, through that process, we were able to avoid some costs too. For example, 12th Avenue was it 12th that was proposed to go from Main Street west? Was it 12th or 11th?
Yeah, I believe it was 12th was in the original plan.
So
if I
we
remember the
got
memo.
rid of that because we saw an opportunity that we didn't have to do something that was unnecessary. So the things we're doing on Main Street helped avoid those things. So as they took a look at the system, they identified those things that they thought would benefit. And I know there's a lot of consternation over this, but in reality, there are two factors that are due to bidding as opposed to scope. The soil, and when they started doing digging in the soil, they recognized this is much worse than we thought. And then and just the time of year. But again, that can't be, it's really more of a timing issue. When we were here in January and February, we were so proud of the fact that we got these great bids on Bay Shore Drive that enabled us to do Eveline Street. When you bid in January and February, you get great results. And if there's a lesson to be learned, but this project, because of the time factor, we're bidding it in June. Not a good time to bid, and I don't normally recommend that, and that's why Public Works, typically for a project like this, they'll do all the advance work. They're doing advance work for next year's projects right now, because that's what you need to do in order to be ready for winter type of bidding.
Correct.
And-
Councilperson Palmieri?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. That's the one thing that really, I guess, concerns me here is that we knew that there would be unknowns to a certain degree. This is a significant unknown that came up. But the thing that I keep thinking about is the announcement and the decision was delayed on the part of that arena development. So it seems to me that when we thought we were going to have an answer on date X, Y, and Z, and it got delayed and delayed, that pushed us off into these higher cost bid timeframes. So my question is, what does the developer have to offer to help mitigate this situation? Not saying that it's 100% on them, but I feel that they share some of the responsibility in this.
I would say that the first item in our analysis section, the WEDC grant, the original intention and the way Mr. Davis and I represented it to Mr. Pierce at the time we applied for the grant is that would help reduce their costs. And as a result of this, it's not reducing his costs. And we had to break the news to Mr. Pierce that the grant was not going to be able to lower his costs for the project. It needed to absorb these costs. So that was the cost of the delay. So it was $250,000. It's nothing to shake a stick at.
So are you saying that isolated out, had there not been the delay, it's equal there?
I'm not telling you that the 250 is the cost. That's far from it. But that was a cost that we identified that we had intended to provide to the developer, and as a result of this, we had to say, we have to keep this. We didn't ask for anything beyond that. The agreement said that they would be paying $2,530,800, and they're continuing to do that, but that was actually going to go down to about $2.25 million. Now it's going to stay above $2.5 million. And Mr. Pierce understood that and recognized that was something that, as a result of everything going on, that was the right thing to do.
So what's Plan B then if council doesn't approve this? What would be the scenario?
If the council doesn't approve this, I'm not sure how much we're in violation of our agreement, but the public improvements in that area, 11th, 11th and South Park would not be done. Main Street would stay in its current status, and the stormwater improvements would go undone.
Where's the risk?
The risk, I'm not sure how much in our development agreement that we'd be in violation of our development agreement. We agreed to put in improvements. They agreed to fund $2.5 million of those improvements. What we would be losing is $2.5 million that would be provided by the developer for improvements, some of which are benefiting the larger area. We're assessing improvements as well, and the arena is a partial recipient of those assessments, as well as the other folks. So we wouldn't be assessing. So we'd have to find down the road $2.5 million in costs. So that's where the win-win was for both of us. they were able to produce some money, and they're contributing $2.5 million. So our loss is $2.5 million.
A follow-up to that. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Roloff, some of the concern is that we are putting an application in to the Public Service Commission for rate increases. Is this project being affected by that application? I mean, are we going to have to put in for higher rates now?
No.
To cover costs, or is it all savings from previous projects that are covering the costs?
These
That's
are
the
all-
concern I've heard from several citizens is, well, you'll just jack up my rates even more.
A utility is covered by the rates we charge, and folks pay for that. But $2.5 million of the improvements are being funded by the developer. In this case, none of the water improvements will be funded by the developer because we're proposing that the water CIP funds. But we've got sufficient savings, and I do owe a list of what those savings are, where they are. But these are costs that we've budgeted already, so we're taking budgeted savings. So it's not adding to any increase because we had already figured we'd be borrowing this year for the $11 million in water improvements that were just approved tonight.
Water was actually 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, I'm sorry. What was the amount for the water a couple weeks ago?
I don't remember.
It was around, but it was
It was in that
it
general
was seven
ballpark,
figures.
yes.
7, 8 figures.
And additionally, there's rules against arbitrage where not just to spend money, but if you borrow money and it is not used, you can't just park it and use it to offset another expense someplace else, i.e. an operating expense. It has to be used in a particular capital project.
It has to be used in a manner which was consistent with what it was
With the
described to be
intent of the
used for, with
borrowing, which would be,
yes.
a water utility would have to be used in a water utility project.
Correct.
A stormwater project would have to be used in another stormwater project. It's not just money that can be banked for a later period.
Correct.
Offhand, this represents about 7% of what we borrowed for a couple weeks ago, the amount that we're putting to this project. So it's a very small portion of what the borrowing was, but it's all savings because, again, the timing of year. Timing of year helped us a great deal. That enabled us to do Eveline Street. And you remember, we didn't have Eveline budgeted, but when that came up, we decided that we had cost savings. And so, again, the lesson to be learned is bid when you can in the winter so that we can reap these benefits. And
When did we know we were short? How many weeks ago, months ago? Do we really know by January already that we were probably going to be below budget or over budget? When did we really know?
over,
On this particular project?
Yeah.
you don't necessarily know until you open the bids, but we had inklings because of the scope. Because of the scope, we probably knew about a month ago, maybe even more than that, maybe 6 weeks.
And just one further, we're taking 749,000 plus from the CIP Wetland Bank. What does that do to us and our involvement with the Wetland Bank program?
Ellen, is that, would you like?
I'll jump into, what it does, certainly it reduces the amount that's available to proceed with that project, but that project is proceeding a little bit slower right now. We're working on getting some agreements in place to do some additional investigation with that. So as far as, making this move right now, it doesn't impact the project because, the project's been impacted by other outside sources that have slowed it down.
Okay, so the communities that we're partnershiping with,
We still are covering our portion of the cost share based on the budget that we have left.
okay. Well, I guess I'm going to support it because I think, I think it needs to be done. It affects more than just the district and the arena. It improves our overall street utility improvements in that area. It's not going to be pushed down the road to higher rates specifically to this project. I mean, we probably will have rate increases because we had that study done a couple years ago already to the water utility and storm and the sanitary sewer district stuff. So we all know that's coming. So we can't violate our agreements with the developer agreements, so, yeah, we do have to have it a lot less expensive, but I don't know where we can go. If we don't do it, we're gonna pay for it down the line, and this council has always said, we've been making up for previous decisions sometimes on infrastructure that didn't get done correctly, and I think this one needs to be done correctly.
And I too will support it because it does involve a larger section of the south side of the city. Not only today, but future development. I think we've got to make the assumption that there is going to be more development in that area. I think rather rapidly too. And I think we have to be ready for it rather than trying to, slow things down with trying to do catch up. So it's unfortunate we're kind of in this situation, but I think we have to support it and keep this moving forward.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm going to support this also, but I have to say that I hope that going forward, we won't be making this kind of mistake again. While, yes, I commend staff in identifying a potential savings in the long run, had we perhaps looked at this again sooner, although, and this is why I'm going to support it, because we took the risk, we committed to this project. There were some unknowns, and this is one of them that came up. So yes, I will support it, but I would just, caution going forward that we be very diligent in identifying additional, I guess, contingencies, if you will.
I mean, I believe staff, yes, timing on this created a lot of these issues. But I believe staff did their best job. And I don't think any of us have a crystal ball. If any of us do have a crystal ball, boy, I'd sure like to have it because it would allow us to get rid of any uncertainty. Do I have a little heartburn over this? Yes, I do. But, sometimes things happen, and anyone who's ever rehabilitated a building, you have a budget and you build in a contingency, and until you take that wall down or put a shovel in the ground, you're not aware of truly what is under there or what is involved in it. So, yes, we kind of missed it a little bit on this one. But when we had the opportunity, when the bids came in and we could redo Eveline Street, there was no consternation about doing that. This council stepped right up and said, yeah, let's do Eveline Street. That wasn't in the original budget. There was some additional monies that were, because of the bidding, they were found, that we were able to do Eveline Street. Furthermore, not only does this affect the arena directly, but it also, as noted, affects other areas of the city and will benefit from it. So, if somebody can find that crystal ball, I think that we should have it here. And then there's no chance of ever making a mistake or being wrong.
Are there any further comments? I see none, so would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby,
Present.
Herman,
Aye.
Hansky,
I still want the information, but aye.
Krause,
Aye.
Heck,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mayor Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 6, present 1.
Resolution 17-332, award bid for Public Works Contract Number 17-22 to PTS Contractors, Inc. for Sawdust District Improvements, $3,974,211.60. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this? Bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Just going to make one comment, and this goes back to, I think, what happened to us when we talked the granary and also now the sawdust district. A name gets applied to something, and it becomes very specific to that one thing, when in fact there is much more involved to it than just what we're calling the sawdust district. So I think somehow we've got to find a way to not get ourselves trapped into a name that is so tightly identified with one small area when it's covering a large section of the city. So for future reference, that we've got to kind of think some of these, we're tripping over our own feet with some of this stuff with the naming of things, so. If there's no further
Mayor?
yes.
I had identified a couple of line items in here that I was communicating with James about that I thought was interesting. We were spending a little additional information on some materials, and I asked why. And it just turns out that we are using more expensive materials that are more chemical resistant because of the materials we found in the soil. So I thought that was interesting, and kind of going along our previous conversation that we're thinking ahead, that we won't have to go in back underground and replace some of these items. We're taking additional steps now, footing the bill for a little bit more expensive materials that will hopefully withstand and provide some cost savings down the road. So I just want to thank James for looking into that and getting me the information.
You're
So
welcome.
thank you.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
The experts are aware of what is best needed and are suggesting that.
If there are no further comments, discussion, would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby,
Present?
Herman,
Aye.
Hansky,
Aye.
Kraus,
Aye.
Heck,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mayor Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 6, 1 present.
Resolution 17-333, approved purchase of traffic signal equipment from TAPCO for electric division for Sawdust District, $77,684.80. Anyone from the public would like to speak to this? There's no one here. Bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Do we get a frequent buyer from TAPCO? I noticed them several times on agendas the past couple of weeks.
And the reason being is standardization of equipment. So, in particular, in this case, traffic signals, but, a lot of what the electric division does is standardization of equipment, so they only have to supply one set of parts instead of parts for dozens of different things. So, that's why they're there, is, because they're the supplier for that set of parts, and we're trying to be consistent so we can, reduce our overall inventory and maintenance costs.
I see no one raising their hands. Would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby,
Present?
Herman,
Aye.
Hansky,
Aye.
Kraus,
Aye.
Peck,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mayor Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 6, 1 present.
Resolution 17-334, approved purchase of traffic signal camera equipment to Grid Smart Technologies for Electric Division for Sawdust District, $33,472. I see anyone coming forward from the audience to speak to this. I'll bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I have a question.
Questions or questions?
Ms. Palmieri, go ahead.
I'm not sure who to direct this question to, but it relates to the use of the signal camera. Would this be like video camera that captures, or is this only like a triggering mechanism?
This is the detection mechanism to signal the control cabinet when there's somebody waiting at an intersection. So it replaces loops in the street which are a little bit more easily damaged due to, either weather, or if somebody has to, do some repairs, or, another utility bores something in, they can get hit and damaged. So this is just detection to, signal the controller, hey, there's somebody here, make sure you take the next step in your cycle when you get to it.
Thank you. Someone had asked that question, whether or not it was capturing surveillance type images.
No, it's just the signal actuator.
These are,
Deputy Mayor Herman?
Are these the ones that the people activate, or it's going to sensor activate?
No, these are cameras that are mounted up on the pole, so they can sense when there's a vehicle in a certain lane to actuate the traffic signal itself. So, a lot of times, on a through street, like Main Street, it might be always green, and somebody pulls up to South Park, oh, yep, you know, the camera now is gonna sense there's somebody there at South Park, and it'll trip the cycle into, okay, now I gotta turn Main Street red so I can get South Park green, so those people can go.
The system is located at Smith and Jackson, correct?
Yes, Smith and Jackson does have that system. There are several other intersections, but I do know that one does have it as well.
Mayor? And what's the thought behind going with this form of technology versus the other options?
Cameras have really improved in recent years, and because of the damage potential, loop detectors are kind of a wire. I'm oversimplifying it. James will correct me tomorrow. But it's a wire basically in the pavement so that
It's a magnet, right?
it's a magnet. And then if they sense the tire or the wheel, it trips it.
And that's a very good point. It relies on electromagnetic currents, so your newer, lighter hybrid cars that are not made out of ferrous metals will not activate a loop detector because there's no electromagnetic field generated. You know, so a car that doesn't have enough iron in its structure cannot trigger a loop detector, whereas a camera can detect that. So as the technologies have changed to make cars lighter and more fuel efficient, the flip side is the loop detectors no longer function because there's not enough iron in the vehicle to trigger it.
Okay, so we are anticipating a greater traffic flow in this area because of the arena, and this is just to facilitate the flow of traffic in that area with the increased traffic.
Yeah, now we're having it go it'll be four ways, because right now, even though you don't have traffic going out South Park that much, we know that we're gonna have much more traffic going out there. So when activity is going, Main Street will know every once in a while it's gotta go red, and that'll help traffic flow.
And how are we enhancing any pedestrian safety? Like, this does not address that at all, correct? This is just for vehicular traffic? This camera?
Yeah, the actuators for the pedestrian call signals are not a part of the camera system. They'll be push buttons constructed either on the signal poles or on a separate pole for pedestrian
Is that
call
included in the
signals.
previous?
I believe that is included in that traffic signal bid previously, yes.
Okay.
In addition, there's also some sustainability benefits from these types of situations in that it minimizes the amount of idling time that vehicles are in the particular queue.
Reduces CO2.
Good, thank you.
And pedestrian safety, we're all installing sidewalks on 11th and South Park and making the Main Street sidewalk, we're pulling it away from the curb, putting in a terrace and making it a 10-foot sidewalk. So it'll be much more improved for pedestrian safety, in my opinion.
Good.
And if you could hold that thought when we get down to Oregon Street, I'm gonna use that against you later in a few moments.
Okay, if there are no further questions or comments, would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby,
Present?
Herman,
Aye.
Pansky,
Aye.
Krause,
Aye.
Peck,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mayor Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 6-1 present.
Resolution 17-335, approved purchase of street lighting equipment to Enterprise Lighting LTD for Electric Division for Sawdust District, $74,082.60. There's no one here in the public that wishes to speak to this. I'll bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? I see no one wishing to speak to this. Would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby,
Present?
Herman,
Aye.
Pansky,
Aye.
Krause,
Aye.
Peck,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mayor Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 6-1 present.
We're down to council discussion, direction to city manager, and future agenda item. Future agenda item, A, council workshop number 1, 2018 budget.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to point out something and then try to retract it at the same time. The budget preparation schedule is on item 42 on the agenda, and one of the items there shows that we had initially proposed Wednesday, July 19th for the first council workshop. I'm aware that there may be some conflicts on July 19th, but if you've been looking at that and thinking about that, we'll make the adjustments. But I'd like to suggest perhaps Tuesday, July 18th But really, it comes down to where most council members can make, either the 18th or the 19th. And we'll make appropriate, but I know there may be some conflicts with some of you. That's an off council week, and we would hold it after the Plan Commission meeting, because that'll be held at 4 o'clock, possibly in the same room.
I would prefer the 19th, if at all.
Any preference from anybody else? I know that's,
I will be out of town the entire week.
okay, so that's workshop 1.
There would also be a Transit Advisory Board meeting at 4:10.
On the...
Possibly,
On the 19th?
19th.
On the 19th.
We usually skip that because of EAA preparations, but
Yeah,
tentatively, we have a meeting scheduled for the 19th.
okay,
I may also be out of town that entire week.
the entire week. We could alternatively, the council meeting is on July 25th. We could hold the workshop back another week. If everybody wants to take a look at their calendar for July 26th, that's another possible.
You really
That
wanna
is
get-
EAA week, excuse me.
July
That's-
26th, you really want to get my wife mad at me?
Oh, you took care of me last year. And actually, that's pitch and mingle night. That's the night during EAA, so that may not be 24th? I'm just throwing out ideas now. It has to do with whatever council's comfortable with.
If it's easier for everybody else to have it that week of the 17th, I can always watch it.
Well, it sounds like I'm going to miss 2 council members, and one is one thing, too, and then you're
Yeah.
getting up.
Well, I'm just saying
Yeah.
from mine, I don't mind if you guys need to proceed. That week is non-negotiable. It's been I will be out the entire week.
I mean, I can be available the 26th, but you'll owe me.
What about the 24th?
I won't be able to be here on the 24th.
Can't do the 24th.
Did we talk about the 27th?
It starts to get towards the weekend.
Yeah.
We can do it the 26th. I'm not, it's,
Yeah, 26 would be all right.
26th?
26 works for me.
That's fine.
What time are you looking at again?
It would be 5 PM unless you wanted to do it any time earlier.
Mr. Roloff, that is a request that I've had in previous years, that we put the proposed time on the budget calendar as well.
Yeah, it gets a little tight on this one, but we'll absolutely, a lot of it depends on your schedule, but 5 PM makes the most sense. So as we do subsequent updates, we'll put the times and everything.
Thank you.
5 PM to 7. Okay. The next item, Mr. Mayor, workshop on council chamber environment improvements. I think I'll defer to the council members who are on that committee. You've met and had some.
Met.
This is about the chamber improvements and.
Chamber improvements, some security enhancements, and a more electronic way to acknowledge people who want to speak. And I think, Jake's back there, but he's got headphones on. I think it's going to be kind of, it's going to be kind of a trial run with the Wink Martindale gadget to push and,
Yeah.
okay.
This will not be televised because we will be moving around a lot in the room, so I don't think it would lend itself to a meeting. People won't be mic'd up. So if you could just be here around 5 o'clock, we'll start going through what the committee's been discussing. And we'll have staff there to talk about those improvements. But it'll be a moving workshop as opposed to a working workshop.
A mobile workshop.
Maybe it'd help too prior, I missed the second meeting, but to maybe pass out ahead of time the information that you're going to be covering for that workshop, like you said, there was some discussion of moving staff, and there was talk of podiums, some other things, so that all council members are kind of given an advance notice of some of the
Sure.
potential changes.
Yeah, Mr. Fitzpatrick has been, and Mr. Urban have been the committee staff, so I'll make sure they have that information for you.
Sure.
And get it well in advance with July 4th coming up and everything. The quicker
Yeah.
we get it to you, the better.
But Chief Smith has had some, I think, very solid ideas on what we do need in this chamber to make it a little more secure, and I think it's needed. But I think it'll require a discipline on everyone's part that you have to allow me to learn how to push all these buttons to acknowledge the fact that you can speak. I can cut you off, too.
Maybe we can have a mock council meeting.
Yeah. It's pretty much like the system we had before, but better. And then,
And if I could just bring up an item, and we did talk about this yesterday, but the agenda did not get amended, and that's just that I received a request from the Oshkosh Farmers Market for council to consider a resolution that would, in essence, acknowledge their unique contributions to the community, and I'd like to find out if council would be interested in putting that on a future agenda for discussion. More specifically, the resolution would request that they be exempt from special event fees in acknowledging some of the other contributions that they make that are very, I guess, I'll use the word hyper-local benefit.
I understand the,
I'm going to
Gist of
interrupt.
it.
I think this is a
But
topic
I
that should be noticed on the meeting
Yeah.
during
Right.
any
This
discussion
is
about
not
it.
Yeah,
long
it should, I
No,
think she's
not
just
for
asking to be put
discussion.
on the
This
agenda.
is just asking for this to be put on the agenda. This wasn't for discussion.
So we can place it
I
on,
put it in the next
we can
agenda.
place it on the next agenda.
Under, it'll be council member announcements and statements. And then 41 is follow-up discussion from June 20th TIF workshop.
This is really more for council to give us any input that they certainly have. One of the things that I've directed Mr. Davis to do is to bring you the evaluation sheet for splitting up both redevelopment TIFs as well as industrial TIFs. The third one for mixed use, I think we can wait a little bit. We don't have anything like that. We've only had one in our entire history, so I think we can wait on that. But getting those two, that seemed to be the most important fast-track item from council. So that's our intent, to bring that forward for council's review and approval. And again, I think it's going to be very similar to what you looked at with the CIP. That just makes the most sense. I'm not sure if there's any other work that you'd like us to follow up on, anything else that came from the workshop that jumps out at you.
Councilman Palmieri?
Yes, and this actually was on my mind at the workshop. We did run short of time, and I should have emailed it after the fact. It is a postscript. I guess what I'm wondering is whether or not we might consider, as part of this policy or in relationship to this policy, looking at a vacant building registry in conjunction with some of our blight determination as it relates to redevelopment. I did have a request into a couple of departments, public safety departments, as it relates to whether or not some of our calls for service have been more slanted, or I should say, whether or not we had a significant number of calls for service to vacant buildings, be they commercial or residential. We did not have the capacity to identify that with our current data. So I would ask whether or not we would consider that in relation to this policy or as a separate matter, and whether or not Mr. Davis has had a conversation perhaps with Mr. Zarate about that.
Yes, we have, and staff has been very interested in that specific topic. At this point in time, we're aware of other jurisdictions that have something of that nature, but it wasn't tied directly to the TIF workshop, and we just haven't had enough time to complete our research on that. But yes, we are aware of that issue, and staff has been very concerned about vacant buildings for many, many years throughout the city, because it does create quite a demand for code enforcement, at least from Mr. Zarati's perspective, on vacant buildings and trying to track down owners or managers or agents to make sure they maintain those properties correctly.
And by
if
vacant
I can
buildings, do we
interject-
mean houses too?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I heard.
We've had some discussions, Mr. Davis, myself, Chief Smith, Chief Franz, regarding a goal for next year for all of our departments, working on nuisance properties and vacant properties and all of that. And so that would fit in with that topic that we talked about, getting together and developing some sort of more comprehensive plan for how we do deal with those types of properties. So it is something that's on all of our radars, and I expect you'll see it as a goal in multiple departments as we go into the next year.
And I guess I would just follow up with, I had reached out to police and fire and inspections on this, kind of knowing that we didn't really have that identified in relation to it. However, I do want to point out that in the police department's annual report, in the crime analyst job description, it does talk about identifying hotspots and trends. And so, Mr. Olaf, I realize that there's a lot of time involved in identifying, but going into those conversations in the future, I would ask that we try to capture some of that data as it relates to police and fire and other city agencies outside of the inspections department.
So is the thinking as it relates to TIF, because staff has independently been working on this, and as Ms. Lawrence pointed out, there's been discussions about nuisance properties. They may or may not be vacant.
Right.
But in terms of vacancy,
So,
where, I just want to make sure I understand where you're going.
well, in some cities, they have this vacant building registry whereby both commercial and residential, after a certain period of time, they're required to be registered as vacant. There are fees associated with it if it continues to be vacant. But there's also data that I think comes out of that analysis with regard to public safety that ties in with our redevelopment and blight elimination scoring specifically. So it's tangential while not direct. And I just would ask that as we go into this process, that we consider adding some additional data in that consideration or in that scoring process.
Okay, we'll kick it around there, thanks. I just want to make sure I
Yeah.
knew where you were going with
And
it.
I don't want to, be
Is
too
this a point we should be
prescriptive.
discussing? Isn't this an agenda item for the next meeting?
Well, in terms of us getting the scoring, if we're coming back with a scoring sheet, anything I can get that you'd like to see on the scoring sheet, it'll help me. I'm very comfortable with this discussion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lansky?
Mr. Davis, I had emailed you asking for some background information regarding an upcoming developer TIF.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering if, I had asked for some background information on Annex's company and their previous use of TIFs in their other projects. There was a recent city council that actually had voted down one of their last requests, which I thought was interesting moving forward. And I just thought that that information might be helpful in an application to have some background. I did reach out to Annex twice now with no success in getting that information. So perhaps by requesting that information up front, we can have a better picture of what a company is doing and how they are utilizing TIFs in their personal growth as well. So I thought that that was something that we could add just to have a little bit more information in our pockets as well. I had also hinted about getting the legal side of that, if that is information that we can ask on a TIF application, but I don't know if that was
It
really.
hasn't been relayed
Okay.
yet. We'll talk. I wasn't
So,
aware of that. so.
I don't know if there's any other thoughts from
I guess
my
I would
other
just
council
add
members.
to that too, I was reading a little bit of information about the same developer, and it kind of brought to my mind whether or not we should be considering at all the assets and the abilities, because I know they have an extremely aggressive schedule of growing their assets. So if that could be included, perhaps, in the application, the assets or the abilities.
Yes.
Yeah, we can certainly look at those types of things. I mean, I heard history on developers use the TIF. I'm just generalizing what you were saying.
Absolutely,
Is that kind
yes.
of where you're going?
Yes,
We're looking for a track record.
Yeah, either success or,
Failure.
all of it,
or lack thereof.
correct.
Ms. Allison Osby?
Thank you. I guess one of the things I'd like to see is, another workshop sometime in the future. The workshop that we had on the TIF was very, very good. The information was outstanding. The presentation was outstanding. I think the only challenge is sometimes when we come to things like that in which council has further consideration of the direction of our strategic plan and where we want to go with the city, and the TIFs being a sensitive subject as of late, that we never have any time as a council to discuss between ourselves. And while I'm not in favor of groupthink, we have had 4-3 votes in regards to TIFs without really an understanding of where each of us is coming from and what direction and what things that we'd maybe like to see in order for a project to move forward. We've talked about the blight and the redevelopment TIFs. We've talked about TIFs for economic development, to have full-time sustaining jobs. But we as a council, we don't have the opportunity to talk as a group. So I think somehow we need to have something where perhaps we have information or we collectively have questions that maybe we provide staff, but it gives us the ability to talk and to talk openly and publicly so that it's all above board.
I agree.
With respect to the checklist that we're working on, would you prefer a workshop like that before we do that? Or just, because there were a whole list of policy items that I did right at the end, and as you point out, they were just kind of like, they're out there and they're just kind of hanging, and now what do you do with them? Are you okay we bring forward the checklist? Because it seemed like that was a big deal with everybody, but the other stuff, I guess, is another way of saying it. So you'd like to have another workshop to basically give you,
Couldn't
you don't
we do
need the
like-
presentations anymore. It's really
Right.
the work part of the workshop as opposed to the presentation.
Yeah,
part.
Maybe how it even gets put together, in a sense that council gets better understanding. I mean, the finance director is not even part of the TIF stuff. Now, why is that? Why isn't she part of it? She handles their finances, but she's not even part of the process. Yet, she's the one that has to work around the financial side of the TIF. So there are some things that I think council needs to discuss why and why not, maybe.
And in follow-up and in support of what you're saying, I called another city prior to that workshop to kind of, several cities actually, and it was interesting because one city in particular, when I called and had some questions, it was the finance director who took that call, and that was a matter of course.
So I think essentially the reason why I bring that up is I think, it's only fair to council to be able to have that discussion openly between ourselves, because we are the 7 elected officials that just determine through the feedback from the public of the direction of the city. And I think sometimes it's perceived that we're led versus that we're leading, and I think this gives a good opportunity for us to do just that.
Then I would schedule TIF 2.
Would you like us to, in advance of that, would you like us to put together kind of an agenda? Because it sounds like it's more about where you go with it as opposed to all that, we don't need to repeat all that presentation stuff that we did for you. You're
brain
satisfied with that, now it's like, where do we, the 7 of you, where do you go from here?
Where do we want to go, and where do we collectively feel on this? And this is no diss to those that have not been in favor, but why aren't they in favor, and what do they need to see in order to satisfy, I guess, what they need or the criteria that they're looking for? Because we have to make that very clear. If we want economic development to continue to happen in Oshkosh, and we want opportunities for all of those types of things, then we need to have a clear message so that we can provide to our strategic partners in the community, and so that everybody's on the same page. We certainly don't want to appear, and again, it shouldn't be always a 7-0 vote, but when we're talking about TIFs and we're talking about different incentives to bring business and opportunities here, we need to be very clear, and we need to be clear among ourselves what those expectations are. That's just my personal opinion.
What I'll do, if this sounds like the wishes of the council, put together some agenda items specific, and a lot of it's going to be that last slide that I gave the presentation on in terms of where do you want to go with these things, whether it's criteria, getting tighter on the criteria, information that you'd like to see from applicants in advance, those types of things. We'll put together a list, get your feedback on that, and then we can schedule a workshop once we have a rough idea, because then we can start working on those things. And I would think that some basic policy options or ranges, more restrictive, least restrictive, most flexible, least flexible, give you something to work with. Does that sound?
Yes.
And-
Okay.
And if we could have Ms. Larson present during that.
I heard that twice. So yes, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, we're at the point of citizen statements to council, and there's no one here to make a statement.
Well, no, Miles is here. He's
He's
somebody.
taking notes. Council member announcements and statements, there is nothing on here. I will now move to city manager announcements and statements. So, Mr. Rolfe,
Thank you,
it's
Mr.
all
Mayor.
yours.
I was engrossed in the discussion and I got logged off. Okay, the first item I have is the budget preparation schedule. If there's anything there that you have any questions or concerns about, obviously, we were already struggling with getting our first workshop off the ground. That's to be expected, especially when we're getting close to the first one. But you'll see some of the target dates. If you anticipate any problem with those, if you could let us know as soon as possible. For example, the 29th of August is anticipated to be the second council workshop. That's typically when we go through the 2016 audit report, as well as go through our 6-month where are we type of thing. The first workshop has typically been about budget assumptions in terms of personnel and things like that. So that gives you a rough idea of what the first 2 workshops are. So August 29th is a 5th Tuesday. We felt that was a pretty safe bet for most of you. But obviously, if you have any concerns with that, let us know and we'll schedule accordingly. September 20th is anticipated for the council workshop on the CIP. Ms. Larson and I are making the final balancing with the 2018 through 2022 capital improvement program. We've pretty much have it, we balance it for 2 years to the 11.4 million, so for 2018 and 2019, and then everything else is pretty much in sort of a wish list, sort of programmed wish list, so to speak. And so that's, generally, we do that on the 20th. I believe the Plan Commission gets a look at that before that because they have to identify it as being consistent with the comprehensive plan of the city. The idea would be to deliver the budget document to you for 2018 at your council meeting, at the first meeting in October. That would be October 10th. There's the day-long workshops in the past. Council in the last couple of years has done a full day workshop that impacts people's work schedules, so I want to make sure it's out there right now. Because there's another 5th Tuesday in October, I thought we could take advantage of it. It's during the day, so if you have a work schedule, you would need to schedule off, and I apologize for that, but that seemed to be very well received by the council. It is, the second day is October 31st. Just pointing it out, I'm not sure, but the idea is to be done by 5, and I believe the council designates trick or treat as about 5 o'clock, so just pointing it out. The oddity in this year's calendar is that the 4th Tuesday in November is when you typically approve the budget. That is actually after Thanksgiving, not the week of. So
Thank God.
the hunter on our council approves of that already. So just pointing that out, because, you know, there were some oddities. Normally, we've had our last workshop the week before we do the budget approval. That is Thanksgiving week, and that doesn't make sense. So what we're looking at is the budget hearing would be on the 14th, and then the workshop on any budget changes would be the day after that public hearing. So you get public input, you hear from the public what they like, don't like, and then the next day, you can give us final touches. And of course, the council members, those of you who've been on, you remember, but for Councilmember Krause, basically, the weeks leading up to the approval, we do one set of options, we give you on Friday, you get a week to mull it over, and then you give its input back to us. And then on the night of council approval, we present to you the list of options that the council has said, I'd like the council to consider these up, down, you know, whatever changes you might have. Gives you an opportunity to mull them over the weekend. Unfortunately, that'll be Thanksgiving weekend, and turkey and reading budgets really don't mesh, but, you know, tryptophan kicks in, you get a nap, you can do the budget after that. But the idea will get those things to you. Obviously, that'll be a short week, so you'll be receiving your agenda document on Wednesday afternoon. That's going to be a very, very tight turnaround. So we'll have to be as flexible as we can to get you that information prior to Thanksgiving.
Can we get this up on the website someplace, maybe like right on the homepage in that slider?
Yep, I think we can, now that we have the date set for the first budget workshop. Unless, you know, please go home, take a look far down your calendar. If you see any conflicts, please let us know, because we would like to get it out there, because that's part of what we do to get the word out on our budget process.
Mark, that week of October 9th, which is a council meeting, I haven't missed a council meeting in a very long time, but I will likely be out of town that week.
Okay.
But carry on.
We'll make sure the
I'm
budget.
sure the 6 can hold the fort.
Upon your return, you will have the budget document. Let's see. And, the other thing in here that's not reflected in this schedule, the League of Municipalities Conference is October 18th, 19th, and 20th. That's why we didn't schedule any workshops that week. And the week after is a council meeting. I'm going to be gone the first 3 days. That's a city manager conference, so they're backing up to each other. The league conference is in Appleton this year, so it's not going to be a huge inconvenience. People can buzz up there during the day. It'll be pretty easy. But I'll be gone. In fact, I'll be absent from the October 24th meeting due to my presence at ICMA. So that's the calendar. So take a look at it. Let me know what you think. Oregon Street, reconstruction. The last a good part of this month I've spent with staff going over capital improvements for 2018. And if you recall, in the CIP is getting going on Oregon Street with the sewer improvements that is effectively going to tear up the street a great deal. So we're going to be reconstructing Oregon Street. And this goes to the point I raised earlier with Councilmember Pansky. Now, you've been in anticipation, what is this all about? If you recall, and James, you're going to put up on the board?
I think, Jake, you have the...
Oh, Jake has them,
graphics?
okay. I'm not looking for any approval tonight, but I want to get you starting to think about this, because it'll have budgetary impacts with the capital improvement program. Oregon Street currently is 44 feet wide. Oh, you did get it. You got a copy of this in your? Yep. Okay. Oregon Street's 44 feet wide, face to curb to curb. Couple of the things that we've been looking at. One is how to get good turning movements from 9th and South Park onto Oregon Street, as well as the turning movements on Oregon Street itself. And Oregon Street currently has, as you're entering the intersections of 9th and South Park, there's 3 lanes, one left, one right, one through. We are proposing to make the right and through lanes a single lane, so only have 2 lanes entering the intersection. Part of that is because that right lane doesn't have a lot of stacking right now. It really only stacks 1 to 2 vehicles. And depending on how cars are parked on Oregon, you don't really get much stacking room. This would improve the stacking. But the other thing, and it's to the point that Councilmember Pansky brought up earlier about pedestrian, you know, our goal is for the Sawdust District and for the arena to be very successful. Spillover benefits will go to that area, primarily Oregon Street. We believe that we should slim down the width of Oregon Street to 40 feet. That would only provide for 2 lanes entering the intersection, but the lane leaving the intersection will actually be wider. So trucks that leave 9th and South Park getting onto Main Street would have a little more berth of getting in there. And it would also increase the width of the sidewalks in that area by 2 feet on each side. And if we're going to have people going to restaurants and other establishments too before and after games, having a little friendlier width for pedestrians, there may be some value to that. Again, this is really just to introduce this idea, get you thinking. Please ask questions of us. We have debated this back and forth so that we feel that this is our recommendation. The other value is it saves about $300,000 on construction. So on top of the fact that it widens pedestrians, sidewalks are cheaper than street, and that 4 feet, moving it to sidewalks rather than street, saves us about $300,000. That'll help balance the CIP a lot easier. When you only have 11.4, you're trying to stretch it as far as you can.
But does that remove parking?
No, it very minimally impacts parking, and in fact, in order to get some of the stacking and queuing around the intersections, I believe the 40-foot width actually allows a little bit more room for parking because of reducing the southbound from 3 lanes down to 2 and opening up the intersection. It allows parking to shift a little bit, so that does actually open up a little bit more space for parking.
Will this allow for a bike lane? Is that in our bike and ped?
Oregon has not been listed in our bike and ped plan because of the width issues, right, James?
I don't know the reason, but I do know it is not in the bike and ped circulation plan.
It does include pedestrian safety. Will you be looking for a recommendation from Bike and Ped? Will this go before parking utility?
Certainly, as we talked about in staff, probably not parking utility, but traffic review and bike and ped were certainly committees that we identified that this discussion would need to go before.
One question I have, because I know we're going to get questions from citizens. Is this going to be as narrow as Main Street?
No, Main Street is 38 feet. We're proposing this at 40 feet.
So that extra 2 feet will be for driving
'Cause
lanes.
that's the biggest, people, when you start talking narrowing streets, the first thing they talk about is Main Street, because they hate it.
Yeah. Well, I also get a lot of positive comments about Main Street, so it depends on who you talk to.
Oh, yeah.
But for those of you who hate Main Street, it'll be an extra foot
Because that is a
wide.
business district too, so, you know,
Yeah.
we got to remember that.
And
we-
it's gonna, I mean, should the Morgan district eventually become a reality and we have those increased number of apartments, I don't believe there was a lot of green space really allotted in that. I guess I'm thinking of it in terms of those extra residents and potential cyclists, whether or not, while it may not be in the bike and ped circulation plan, you know.
It will increase.
Now would be the time to have that conversation if that was gonna be modified, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think to get full-blown parking lanes, you know, you would see something similar to Main Street from Murdoch to New York, where you would lose parking on one side of the street in order to get full-blown bike lanes on this street. So that's certainly a topic that needs to be discussed, and that's why, as the city manager pointed out, we need to start this discussion now. If council will remember, you know, last year, we started a discussion on street width on Bay Shore Drive in November, and that led to a very difficult time for my staff being able to get design done and out to the private utilities so they could do their work. You know, we identified Oregon Street as being very sensitive in that there are many private utilities, and in fact, AT&T, it is their main communication trunk line from Fond du Lac to Appleton is in Oregon and Jackson Street. So we need to be very sensitive to their needs to be able to complete design work as well, because they will have to do a lot of work in conjunction with the street project. So that's why, after we had our preliminary CIP meeting, we decided we needed to start having this discussion with you now, so that we're not doing it in October and November when everybody's now behind the 8 ball and we're behind schedule.
So we wanted to get the ball rolling on this, so, please, we're going to be getting it out there, getting information, soliciting information. Traffic and Bike and Pet are on our radar to get it to them. And so appreciate you taking a look at it and giving us your best critique. We believe this is the best way to go, but I don't want to sit there and make a recommendation and then say, oh, you don't want to do this? And if you don't want to do this, I'm okay with that too, but it has a $300,000 impact, so I have to adjust accordingly if we take a look at alternate plans. So thank you for their time on that one. The last one thing, two things. Cooperative purchase of vehicles, these are under our bidding process with the state, so we purchased the vehicle for the wastewater treatment plant as well as the sign shop. Both are in the CIP and both are on budget. We already talked about the arena, but I just wanted to mention as we're closing, Mayor Cummings and I are going to be going down to Madison on Thursday. The Assembly Ways and Means Committee is going to be discussing the dark store in Walgreens. I've been asked to testify. Mayor's going pretty much to show our widespread support for making some changes to that. I had an opportunity to meet with assessing staff, and we're making sure that our statements are in sync with what we're hearing from other communities, but also telling our story about the impact on Oshkosh itself so people understand that. So we'll be going down there, and I think in my newsletter I said I was going to be gone on Friday. I wasn't planning to go down to Madison, so I will be here on Friday because I'm losing a day down in Madison, but it's too important for us to miss out on that. So
Thank you for doing that.
That's all I have.
Just one quick comment, reminding everyone that the 4th of July parade is on July 4th, which is Tuesday. It is sponsored by the Oshkosh Patriotic Council. The council will be in the parade. It starts at 9 o'clock at the corner of CP and Main, goes up to Irving, and then heads east to Menominee Park. And the fireworks will be that evening, July 4th, at Menominee Park. They start at dusk. And the fireworks display is sponsored by Festival Foods and the city of Oshkosh. In other words, the citizens of Oshkosh, along with Festival Foods, are sponsoring the fireworks display. So everyone have a safe and healthy 4th of July, and we'll see you on July 11th.
What time you want to say?
About 8:30.
Okay.
About 8:30. And now I will turn this over to Deputy Mayor Herman.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that following the adjournment of this meeting, that the council convene in the closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C of the Wisconsin State Statutes to discuss the mid-year review of the city manager and employee over which the Common Council's jurisdiction and exercises responsibility.
Second.
Would you please take a roll?
Allison Osby?
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Ansky?
Aye.
Krause?
Aye.
Heck?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Mayor Cummings?
Aye.
Carried 7.
I would like a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Adjourned. What time would you like us to?